What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Board Games Are For Everybody, where today we're going to be taking a look at Bear Down, the game where you try and catch the most fish, but don't go down with the flow. This is a game that we picked up fairly recently. It's a fairly simple setup, very simple rules, not very hard to get into. The best thing that I love about this game is when the box is implemented into games, and what you are supposed to do is, you use the bottom. Let me get all the stuff out here first. So we've got our bears over here. We've got all of our dice. We've got, I'm just going to flip this over because it's going to make my life a little easier. We've got all of our fish tokens and all of our river tiles that are going to be used to play the actual game. I'm just going to scoop these off to the side here for a sec so that we can set up the actual thing, which is that we are using the box as part of the game. As you can see on here, we've got little waterfall on the side. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to flip the box over and you turn out your board here, and it kind of becomes the basis for the game. Pretty cool. I always love when stuff incorporates the box. Now, granted, it's not doing a whole lot. You could use any old thing underneath there to hold it up, but I do really like this flowing stream board. I think it's really interesting. We're going to set the game up for 4 players. I know typically that we just set these things up for 2 players because that's the only amount that we typically play with, but the 4-player game is going to allow me to explain the rules a little easier, and they can absolutely be used for a 2-player game. I think the way the 2-player game is set up is definitely with younger kids in mind. So we're just going to go with the 4-player game to get the entire scope of the game into this video here. So first things first, each player is going to select a bear as well as the corresponding token. Now, these little tokens don't do anything. It's just so each player can remember who's who. So each character has their own corresponding token. Each player is then going to place their bear up onto the rock up at the top here. I'm just going to put these out in order, in a random order here to keep turn order, and we're going to try and remember whose turn it is. I can actually use the turn token. This is what's used to tell whose turn it is, so definitely helpful for this situation because I can just move it back and forth. Now, we're going to set this up the way that the game is intended. I will show some house rules we made afterwards, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put 10 tiles underneath this rock right here. So we're going to take 10 tiles. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're just going to place those underneath the rock over here. Each row of the 5, 6, each row of the river here is going to have 6 tiles laid onto it. And this is going to be kind of the foundation for our game as we go along here. We're just going to very slowly put all of these pieces in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is just thrilling content. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We should have an entire video of just slotting river tiles into this board here. Just push them out the back continuously. Just keep putting them in one by one. And 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is all set up now. So once all of these have 6 on them, you're going to put 2 fish onto each of these front tiles here. And then the rest of the fish are going to go into the stream down at the bottom here. And the rest of our tiles here are just going to go into a stack. And once we get all this set up here, we can finally start explaining the game. Setup for this game, much more complicated than the actual game is. That's for sure. Okay, so we got all our tiles here. And let's just get all these fish. And all of our remaining fish just go down into the river down here. So we now have a river full of fish. So the way the game works is that on the player's turn that it is, they are going to roll all 5 dice, and each of these dice have a corresponding color on the back of the board here. That I know is a little hard to see in the video, but each die has a corresponding color on the board, and when you roll those die, certain things are going to happen to each of those rows. So first thing that we're going to do, we're going to roll every dice here, and I'm just going to do this in order of color on the back. So we got green, pink, yellow, blue, red. So there are a bunch of different symbols on all of these dice. As you can see on the green dice here, we got 1 wave tile. Now, the dice also have 2 wave tiles, but for the time being, we have 1 wave tile. We have 1 fish on the pink die. We have 3 fish on the yellow die. We have 1 fish as well as 2 wave tiles on the blue die, and we have 3 fish on the red die. So the way that this part of the this phase of the turn works is that water tiles are always pushed first. So you would take however many tiles is on the dice, and you would just push it through the back of the board, which causes all of the tiles at the front of the row to fall forward into the river. Any fish that fall back into the river are put back into the pool. Any tiles that fall into the river are put into a discard pile because they aren't used again. So we did our 1 water tile for the green row. We now have 2 water tiles that we need to do for the blue row. So that is going to push both fish back into the supply pool, and there are now no fish on the blue track. So now that that part of the die roll is done, we now move on to placing fish back on to different places. So what you do is that you take a fish for each column, or each row, I guess, that has a corresponding fish on it, and you start from the first tile and make your way back. So the pink die has 1 fish on it. So you would take 1 fish token and put it on the front space of the row. The yellow space happens to have 3 fish tokens. So what you would do is you would take 3 fish and you would go 1 at a time to each space on the row to add more fish to that row. The blue only has 1 fish, so that's going to put 1 fish back onto blue. And red, like yellow, also has 3. So we're putting 3 fish into that row there. That's going to end the die phase of the turn. Now, starting with the first player's turn, that player is going to move their bear to try and get some fish. Now, the way that this works is you can move in any direction that you want, up, down, left, right, but you cannot jump over the rock tiles that are in the center of some of the rows. And you also cannot pass through any bears that are out, and you have to stop on a fish. So what the first player might do is they might come over this way onto this fish here, seeing it is the farthest back from the front of the waterfall, because as you put yourself out closer to the waterfall, there's a chance your bear might get pushed over and you might lose all your fish. So now that that player's moved, we now have this player to go next. Let's say that they just move to this fish here. So we're now taking up a lot of spots because you are not allowed to go onto the same space that another bear is on. So we now have this guy here, let's say he's going to come to this one here, going to risk possibly getting pushed over the waterfall in the yellow column. But he also has 2 fish to work with. And let's say the last bear just comes down to this one here. So now that this is done, play would move to the next player. Once again, we're going to roll all of our dice. And we're going to put stuff in order here again. And luckily for everybody, there are no water tiles that have been left by the dice roll. So starting just with fish, we have 1 fish on green, which is go on the front. We have 2 fish for the pink space. Now, what happens in this situation is 1 fish would go on the front here. However, you never put a fish on a space that has a bear on it. So you would just put the fish on the tile behind the bear. We have 1 for yellow, we have 1 for blue, and we have 3 for red. And now that everything has been placed, once again, we're going to do our movement with all of the bears. Let's say that this bear here wants to play it safe. He's just going to come back to Bear Rock. Every time you come back to Bear Rock, you score any fish that you carry with you. So this bear would just put his fish into a scoring pile on their side of the table. And let's say this bear's being a little greedy. He wants to come up to the edge of the waterfall here, try and get all of these fish, because all fish underneath your bear move with you as you make new moves. So let's say this bear's being a little greedy. He wants to try and get all these fish. We now move on to the next bear, who's just going to move back 1, still safe from falling off of the edge, but getting another thing. And then let's say this bear back here. Now, as you can see, because there is a fish back here, this bear won't be able to come back to Bear Rock because a bear isn't allowed to go past a fish. They have to stop if they hit a fish tile. So let's say that they want to come back 1 as well, and they're not going to risk this top fish here. So we now move back to the next player, and we're going to roll here, and we're going to do this. We got green, pink, yellow, blue, red. So starting off with our wave tiles, we have 2 wave tiles on the green space. So we have 1 and 2, which is going to push all of those fish off. We have 1 on the pink tile, which is going to move our bear 1 step closer to the edge of the waterfall, and is also going to put all of these fish back into the scoring pile. And we do, unfortunately, have 1 wave token on yellow. Now, because we have 1 wave token on the yellow space, this bear is going to end up being pushed over the edge with all of the fish that also got pushed over. When this happens, a bear is just reset back to Bear Rock, and they lose all the fish that they potentially could have gotten. So there is a bit of push your luck when it comes to getting fish, because obviously, based on how the dice go, there will be more fish piled up at the front of the waterfall, but you always risk getting pushed off by the waterfall. So that's something that can definitely hinder trying to get more fish. And we have 1 tile for red. So this goes 1 space forward, and then we have 1 fish for green. We have 3 fish for blue. And we have no fish for red. So that would end that turn. And this is more or less how the game is played until the game is over. Once you run through all of the tiles, you then move on to these last 10 tiles over here. And that is when the game ends, is either when you run out of tiles or if all fish in the pond have been scored by players. So once all your tiles run out, you would score whoever has the most fish in their score pool, and whoever has the most fish is the winner of the game. And that is more or less how Bear Down works. It's a very simple game, very simple push your luck game, I suppose. I really like the idea of the tiles moving forward to create the river. I think that's just a fun idea. I like the idea of the fish, jumping up the waterfall and the bears just sitting there trying to catch them. Like that's what they do. That's what they do. Obviously, it's the theme of the game. But I think it's a really cute game. I think it's a fun time. Obviously, it's not super in depth, but there is some strategy there. You're trying to place yourself in a way that you can get the most fish possible, but you don't want to end up going over the edge of the waterfall and risking losing all of the points that you have accumulated. So that is Bear Down, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say about the game. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the game. It is great for any age, really. Obviously, it's a kid's game, but I think it's good for any age. But yeah, that's just something I forgot to throw in there. That was my fault. Definitely my fault. I was trying to end the video and I had something else to say. But I'm going to stop rambling now. This is it. This is the end of the video. This is Bear Down. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you've played Bear Down, let me know what you think of it. Do you think it's a cute game? Do you think it's got interesting mechanics, regardless of the fact that they're not particularly in-depth or anything like that? If you've played it, let me know what you think of it. If you saw this video and thought, hey, maybe I want to give that a try, let me know that too. It's always nice to know that I have contributed to someone's potential enjoyment of a new game. If you guys are on Instagram, don't forget to check us out at the Board Games Are For Everybody Instagram page, where we post pictures of games that we're playing. We post stuff that we pick up outside of the monthly pickup videos. And it's just a fun place where people can come and talk about stuff that they're playing, talk about the games that we're posting, stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the review of Bear Down. Hopefully I will see you all next time. But until then, just remember that board games are for everybody. And until then, peace.